If you listen closely to the silence of the Roman Forum today, you might just hear the ghost of a roar. It is a sound that once shook the very foundations of the ancient world, a deafening thunder of 50,000 voices screaming in unison. They are cheering for death. But why? Why did the greatest civilization of antiquity, a culture that gave us law, engineering, and philosophy, dedicate its vast resources to machine design for public slaughter? This is not just a story about stone and mortar. It is a story about the price of power and the seductive danger of entertainment. Standing in the shadow of the Colosseum, we are forced to ask a terrifying question. Did this arena hold the empire together, or was it the very thing that tore it apart? By the end of this journey, you will understand how the spectacle that defined Rome eventually helped destroy it. To understand the Colosseum, we must first understand the chaos that birthed it. In the year 68 AD, Rome was a city on the edge of collapse. The tyrant Nero was dead, having committed suicide as his empire revolted against him, plunging Rome into a bloody civil war known as the Year of the Four Emperors. Out of this fire and ash emerged a pragmatic general named Vespasian. He was a man of the people, a soldier who understood a simple, brutal truth. To rule Rome, you did not just need to command the legions, you needed to command the mob. Nero had built a golden palace for himself in the center of the city, seizing public land for his private pleasure. Vespasian did the opposite. He reclaimed that land and promised to build the greatest public arena the world had ever seen. But how do you pay for a wonder of the world when the treasury is bankrupt? The answer lay in the east. While Rome was infighting, Vespasian's son Titus was crushing a rebellion in Judea. In 70 AD, Titus sacked Jerusalem, destroying the Second Temple and looting its unimaginable treasures. It was this gold in the backs of tens of thousands of Jewish slaves that paid for the Flavian Amphitheater. It was a monument to Roman victory built on the sorrow of a conquered people. When construction began, it pushed the limits of what was physically possible. The Romans utilized a revolutionary material called concrete and the strength of the arch to build higher and heavier than anyone had dared before. When the arena finally opened in 80 AD, the spectacle was staggering. But the Colosseum was doing something even more subtle than entertaining the masses. It was enforcing the social order. The seating arrangements were a rigid map of Roman society. At the very bottom sat the emperor and the Vestal virgins. Behind them were the senators, then the ordinary male citizens. At the very top, in the nosebleed seats, sat the women and the slaves. Everyone knew their place, as long as the emperor provided the games and the free bread distributed alongside them. The people felt cared for. This was a politics of bread and circuses, a bribe to keep the restless population from turning their anger against the ruling class. To truly grasp the scale of this operation, we must look deeper beneath the wooden sands, into the belly of the beast. For years, the Colosseum was not just an arena, it was a stage for the impossible. But how did they make forests appear from nothing? The secret lay in the hypogeum, the underground. This two-story subterranean labyrinth was the engine room of the amphitheater. It was hot, noisy, and reeking of fear. Here, hundreds of slaves worked in cramped darkness, operating 60 capstans that powered the elevators. Picture the coordination required. At the blast of a trumpet, men heaving on ropes to lift a cage containing a 500-pound lion, timing it so the trapdoor opened and the beast emerged exactly as the music swelled. Yet, the engineering marvels were not limited to the ground. If you looked up on a scorching July afternoon, you would see a vast, billowing cloud of silk and canvas known as the velarium. This retractable awning covered 2/3 of the arena, shielding spectators from the heat. The task of operating it was so specialized that the emperor commandeered a detachment of sailors from the imperial fleet. These were men used to battling Atlantic storms, now stationed hundreds of feet in the air, dancing with the wind to keep the crowd cool while the blood ran hot below. There was a brief moment in the Colosseum's history, however, where the spectacle transcended even the gladiatorial duel. In the early days, before the heavy masonry of the hypogeum was fully installed, the Emperor Titus ordered the arena to be flooded. Through a complex system of sluice gates and aqueducts, Millions of gallons of water poured into the basin, transforming the dusty floor into a lake. They brought in flat-bottomed warships, essentially creating a miniature sea battle or Naumachia right in the city center. Thousands of prisoners of war were forced onto these ships to reenact historical naval battles. The water turned red as ships rammed and boarded one another, the screams of drowning men echoing off the marble stands. It was the ultimate display of Roman power, the ability to bring the ocean indoors. But let us step away from the stones and look into the eyes of the men who died here. Take, for instance, Flamma, a Syrian gladiator. He was not a mere victim. He was a legend. Flamma fought 34 times, 121, and in a stunning display of defiance, was offered his freedom 4 times. 4 times he refused it. Why? Perhaps for Flamma, the arena offered something the outside world could not: glory, money, and adoration. His story complicates our view of Rome, realizing that for some, the Colosseum was a stage where even a slave could hold the power of life and death. To understand the quality of the violence, we must look at where it was manufactured. The Ludus Magnus, connected to the arena by a secret tunnel. This training school was a place of paradox. The gladiators were slaves, yet they received the finest medical care available, treated by doctors like the famous Galen. They were fed a specialized diet of barley and beans to build protective fat. They were valuable assets, investments protected until the moment they could be spent for crowds' amusement. The Colosseum was also a machine of ecological devastation. To satisfy the thirst for exotic beasts, hunters scoured the Atlas Mountains for lions and the Nile for crocodiles. The scale of extraction permanently altered the ecosystems of North Africa. The North African elephant and the Caspian tiger were hunted to extinction, not for food, but for the sand of the amphitheater. It was a logistical miracle dedicated to destruction. Let us now place ourselves in the stands on a game day. If we could travel back, the first thing that would hit us is not the sight, but the smell. Rome was a crowded, unwashed city, and 50,000 people packed together created a potent atmosphere. To combat the stench of the poor and the metallic reek of blood rising from the sand, mechanisms in the walls sprayed a fine mist of water mixed with saffron and wine over the audience. It was a perfumed rain designed to mask the horror. The noise would have been deafening, not just the cheering, but the sound of betting. Gambling was rampant. Senators wagered estates. Commoners wagered their daily bread. The Colosseum was a microcosm of the city itself. Loud, smelly, chaotic, and relentlessly alive. There is also a myth we must address: the story of the Christians. For centuries, the popular image of the Colosseum has been that of Christian martyrs being fed to the lions while singing hymns. While Christians were certainly persecuted in Rome, historical evidence suggests that most of these specific martyrdoms occurred in other locations, like the Circus of Nero. However, this myth became the building's savior. In the mid-18th century, the Pope consecrated the building to the memory of the martyrs. Ironically, it was a historical exaggeration that saved the pagan monument from being completely dismantled by looters. Beyond the bloodshed and the betting, the Colosseum served a function that was strictly political. In an absolute monarchy where the emperor held the power of life and death, the amphitheater was the only place where the ruler and the rule came face to face. It was a dangerous stage. When the emperor entered his box, he was being judged. The mob used the anonymity of the crowd to voice their grievances, chanting for lower taxes or cheaper bread. If the emperor ignored them, he risked a riot. To rule Rome, one had to master the arena, balancing generosity with discipline. As the years turned into centuries, the dignity of the games began to rot. We must speak of Emperor Commodus, who famously fancied himself Hercules. Unlike his predecessors, Commodus wanted to be the star, entering the arena to fight opponents who were often crippled or armed with wooden weapons. He charged the state treasury exorbitant fees, effectively bankrupting Rome for his ego. The illusion of the noble games was shattered. It was no longer about Roman virtue. It was about the madness of a tyrant. But the Colosseum's greatest enemy was economics. As the 3rd century brought civil war and hyperinflation, the state could no longer afford the astronomical cost of the games. The spectacles became smaller, the costumes shabbier. The arena, which had once projected infinite wealth, began projecting empire in decline. The final gasp of the gladiatorial games came with a moment of moral shock. A monk named Telemachus, horrified by the bloodshed, leaped into the arena to stop a fight and was stoned to death by the crowd. His sacrifice moved the emperor to finally ban gladiator combat in the early 5th century. With the empire gone, nature reclaimed the stone giant. In 1349, a massive earthquake caused the southern side to collapse, turning the Colosseum into a quarry. The great travertine blocks were stolen to build the palaces and churches of Rome. The Eternal City cannibalized its own history. By the 19th century, it had become a romantic ruin, a botanical garden where poets like Byron contemplated the fleeting nature of power. In the last few decades, we have stopped guessing about the lives of gladiators and started using science to hear them speak. Forensic anthropologists, examining gladiator graveyards, have uncovered startling truths. By analyzing the strontium levels in their bones, scientists confirmed that these men were effectively vegetarians, living on barley and beans. Their bones show signs of terrible injuries that had healed perfectly, proving they received high-quality medical treatment. This reinforces a cold reality of the arena. These men were too expensive to let die from a simple infection. They were professional athletes in a brutal league. But while the bones have survived, the building itself faced a new enemy: modern pollution. By the late 20th century, the Colosseum was coated in a black crust of soot. In a massive restoration project, the monument was scrubbed clean with water nebulizers, revealing the creamy, golden travertine beneath. For the first time in centuries, we can see the Colosseum as the Romans saw it, not as a dark ruin, but as a bright temple to the sun. Today, the Colosseum is transformed again. In a striking twist of irony, the amphitheater has become a global symbol against capital punishment. Whenever a country abolishes the death penalty, the Colosseum changes its lighting from white to gold. The monument built to celebrate execution now shines as a beacon for the right to live. We are even now planning to rebuild the arena floor, allowing visitors to stand where gladiators once stood, looking up at the towering seats. The Colosseum's shadow is long, stretching across 2,000 years to touch us today. It is a monument to the best and worst of humanity, our ingenuity and our cruelty. It serves as a mirror, reflecting our own obsession with spectacle and distraction. When we watch violent sports or consume endless drama, are we so different from the Romans? We may have traded the sand for screens, but the human desire to watch the rise and fall of others remains etched in our DNA. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the dark heart of the Roman Empire. If this deep dive into the engineering and the human stories of Rome sparked your curiosity, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. And I have one final question for you to answer in the comments. If you had the choice of the Roman mob, to spare a defeated gladiator or to demand the final blow, which way would you turn your thumb and why? Let me know below. Until next time, keep questioning history.